Two teams separated by just 1 point in the table. United ahead of City. United 5 points back here, league leaders. City 6. Each team has played 10 matches so far this season. Craig, this feels like a game that's perfectly set up for Manchester United. They're in a crisis. They're playing a team that we know is going to have lion's share of possession. They're going to win this game, aren't they, like they always do? And then the conversation next week is going to be about how these players always come to Ole's rescue.
It's a semi-crisis because they've actually picked up some good points in the Premier League, particularly away from home. But they've done it the difficult way, and that is by starting poorly and then finishing strongly. And, you know, the question was, could they continue to do that? Well, they certainly couldn't in Leipzig, where they had a horrendous first half and then they were scrambling at the end. And, you know, we talked about it in the week. They're such a hard team to predict, Man United, for that reason. But the last two games that United have beaten City, that City have completely dominated. I mean, just played them off the park and lost. And don't expect anything different tomorrow in terms of the ball possession for Man City. But the big question is can this Achilles heel of the City side, that when they're in possession, they get cut out at the back, can they figure that out? The sloppy defensive aspect of the game, they have to fix. And the other side of the game that's quite sloppy at times is their, and this might sound strange, is their final third. Because if you look back at those United games, if you look at the Tottenham game where they lost recently, they're trying to walk the ball into the net. And if they're really more, if they really put the hammer down in that final third, I think they can win this game quite comfortably. But the longer they leave it, where United are in the game, the more chance a Martial, who we think is fit, or a Rashford, or somebody like Cavani can run in behind and potentially get a winner. Personally, myself, I think the run for Man United is over in these derbies, and I see a City win tomorrow.
Don, that's exactly it, right? Just the concern for Manchester City. We know they've stabilized things at the back, but in the attack, man, just 17 goals this season. 9 teams in the Premier League have scored more than them, and no Kun Aguero expected on Saturday.
Yeah, no, Sebi, it was a case of, last season, seasons before, they were walloping teams by 8. They beat Watford 8 comfortably, beating teams by 6s, 7s, 4s, 5s. They were prolific at the top end of the pitch. But in this fixture, they've struggled massively. I mean, Kevin De Bruyne doesn't score in this fixture. Raheem Sterling doesn't score in this fixture, nor Jesus. The only 2 players over the years that were scoring in this fixture was Vincent Kompany and Sergio Aguero. One's long gone, and one will probably be on the bench at the weekend. So I think over the years, I think this game depends on the 2 holding midfield players. I think Gundogan and Rodri have got massively important roles to play, and they're going to have to be really, really disciplined. Allow the front 4 to try and win the game if you can. But on the counter, we know how Man United are going to play. They're going to be defensively solid. They're going to let Man City have the ball, dominate the ball, 70s, maybe 75, 80% possession, and then spring on the counter. And that's always hurt City. So I used to think over the years the Liverpool fixture was the one that gave Pep nightmares. I think it's now turned to the Man United one because they are so unpredictable, and Pep loves to study and do his homework and do extra homework on how the opposition play. No one knows how Man United are going to play. I was at the Southampton game, I was at the West Ham game when they got bossed off the pitch and bopped off the pitch at times and then won those games. So they're just ridiculously hard to try and predict, and it's a nightmare game this for Pep.
Yeah, Shaka, we talk about this Manchester United squad. Really, we talk about the inconsistencies. We focus so much on the manager, but what about some of the players? I mean, the likes of Maguire, Wan-Bissaka, Rashford, we could throw Greenwood in there. Even De Gea, like these guys are not performing right now at a so-called United level, are they?
No, they're not. Listen, we continue to question Ole Gunnar Solskjaer tactically, and I think we're justified in doing that. But you're looking for individual performances, and you're not getting them. Outside of Bruno Fernandes, who continues to be, without question, Manchester United's best player, you saw Wan-Bissaka exposed against RB Leipzig. Maguire, again, I thought he was awful and culpable for the 3rd goal and the decisive goal against Leipzig. De Gea has been inconsistent for a couple of years now. That's the huge concern. Whereas I think, certainly back end of last season, United could have relied on their front 4. Too often, the likes of Rashford and Greenwood had fantastic opportunities against Leipzig himself. They've not been as sharp in front of goal as maybe you'd come to expect. And as a result, you get these inconsistent performances. You're not sure whether they're going to be great or poor.
Craig, got to get your reaction to some of the surprising comments, I guess we'd say, from Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. He says they're getting better and better. These are comments after the Champions League crash out. He says he sees the consistency that everybody else doesn't see. I mean, what do you make of it?
Well, you know, managers say things when they're trying to protect the players, when they're trying to protect their own jobs and the criticism that comes with it. There's been some reports in the UK and some of the newspapers that the board are happy with them and they see progression. I mean, there's progression one week and regression the next.
Yeah. Is that progress?
Look, I'll put it one way. The only way United will come close to winning the league this year is if Liverpool and City capitulate and Chelsea, right? They're not going to do it by their own consistency. So, no, I don't waver my opinion on that they're going to have to make a managerial reappointment at some point. And whether that's, after the weekend if they lose, or whether it's 3 months, or whether it's 6 months, I think they're going to have to do it. So I think they're losing ground by just keeping them in charge and by staving off, by getting the odd result. And I really see City. I think it's time Man City took control of this fixture again. We've seen them played off the park for long periods by Leipzig. We saw West Ham completely outplay them in the first half and should have had the game wrapped up. It's time City went in after 2 lay-down wins against Burnley and Fulham and really stamped their authority on this league again and said, look, Liverpool and Chelsea possibly, we're here and we're going to pick up momentum. We've got players coming back and put down a marker against this pretty average Man United side. That's what I think City need to do. Whether they can do it at the weekend, I'm not sure. But I do feel that if they're professional about their performance, then they've got way too much, particularly in the middle of the park for this United side.
Don, what do you make of all those comments? Because there is something to go on here. I mean, they've won 4 straight in the Premier League. With a win, depending on other results, they could be top 4 with the game in hand when the weekend is said and done.
Yeah, I don't buy the consistency one though, Seb. I really don't. I mean, people might say it is consistent when you lose some goals and you're coming back and winning, but you can't keep doing that forever. That was my feeling when I was at West Ham at the weekend. I just thought when I watched Man United, as I was there the week before against Southampton, they can't string back-to-back wins together. And it was you were sitting commentating on the West Ham game thinking, well, they'll either lose against West Ham and beat Leipzig, or they'll beat West Ham and lose against Leipzig. That's the type of team they are. And it was no surprise to me that Leipzig turned them over. The manner of the defeat surprised me. I thought United would have been a lot more competitive. The 3-2, I think, flat as United, because it could have been 5 or 6. So I don't really buy where the consistency is and where they're making progress if you've just been dumped out the Champions League into Europa League.
Don, time for our weekly, almost daily question here on ESPN FC. Should Ole start Pogba in this match?
Listen, do you know what, Sebi? I literally don't know, because against West Ham, in the first 45 minutes, I said in commentary, and I stand by it, and Shaka's been there and Craig's been there, and we've all been there when a manager delivers a team talk at half-time and he has a right go at every single player and he makes 2 changes at half-time and he says, I could have taken any one of you lot off, apart from, in my opinion, Wan-Bissaka against West Ham. He was the only player. And then Paul Pogba in the second half turned into a genius. And it pains me to say it, because Man United can't be a one-man team, but they are. It's all about Bruno Fernandes. As soon as he came onto the pitch, everyone come alive. Rashford come alive. Martial didn't really fancy the game, but he made 1 or 2 runs. Juan Mata the same. They were just a completely different side when he was in it.
I'll tell you the answer.
Yeah?
No.
Should we make a bet like you and Stevie did?
No, I won't get my money. I won't get it off Don either. I know that, so there's no point. But the answer's no. And I'll tell you why. And what he'll do is, the only way we'll see Paul Pogba, in my opinion, at the weekend, is in desperation.
Right.
You can't have him on the field against a City side that are going to dominate the ball, they're going to shift it around quick, because he's a defensive liability, right? So he's going to have to put dogs in there. He's going to have to put the Freds and the Matic and the McTominays that are going to work. And if City get the upper hand, then we might see Paul Pogba, because it's a desperation thing. It was desperation at Leipzig. He played the first half, as Don said. He played the game at West Ham. He wasn't at fault for their performance, but he was one of numerous guys who didn't play particularly well in the first half. But he won't play because he can't be trusted. He can only be trusted to come on and try and save the manager's backside when they're getting beat. So I will be shocked if he starts at the weekend, purely because, I tell you what, let me put it one way. Pep Guardiola would love it if Paul Pogba starts, because he cannot go and close the ball down, right? He makes bad decisions. He makes bad decisions in his own penalty box with rash challenges. He doesn't get close to people. And if he plays, it'll make it easier for City to pop the ball around that midfield.
Shaka, I see you nodding. What's your take on Pogba?
Listen, I think Paul Pogba is an incredible talent. But for me, things have to be going right. Things have to be all going his way for you to see the best out of Paul Pogba. And I think his agent has scuppered any chance of that. And right now, he becomes a distraction. So until Ole Gunnar Solskjaer on February 1st can say to Paul Pogba, you're here till the end of the season at least, and you know that you have his focus between February 1st and the end of the season, I don't start him. And I only use him in desperation, as Craig put it.
You know, I'm slightly contradicting myself here, because probably in shows gone by I've said, you know, for somebody of his talent and all that, and he has got talent. But I'm slightly disagreeing with Shaka here. I don't think... What was the phrase you used there, Shaq, about talent? Was it a...
He's a distraction.
No, but you said he's an extreme talent or something. I used to think... I don't think he is. I just don't think he is anymore. I mean, Messi, Ronaldo, Kevin De Bruyne, all these guys, they're extreme talents. Guys that pitch up and do it every week. You're not an extreme... You're not a great talent if you're on the bench for this. You know, if you were on the bench for Fergie's Man United team that was winning trebles, yeah, I could get that. This Man United side. So I don't think he is. I think he's morphed into the category of just being a good player. And he's a better player in better teams. I'll give you that when he goes and plays for France and stuff like that. But I just think he's a good player. He's not a great player that possibly he could be if his attitude and his desire were better. But I don't think he's in the level of a lot of other players around Europe. I really don't think so.
Don, it's an interesting debate. One Robbo chimed in on a couple days ago. Robbo mentioned that he thinks Pogba still is world-class elsewhere. Do you think Pogba's still world-class, Don?
No, I don't, because he doesn't do it every single week or close to that. As the guy said, I think we all recognise when we look at Paul Pogba, you look at him and you think, if you really wanted to be one of the best midfield players in the world, you could be. But when you watch his performances, they're too indifferent. So you can't put him as one of the very, very best, because you're not sure what you're going to get out of him. Some weeks you'd want to play against him because you could run him and you could run him all over the pitch. And defensively, as Craig said, it gives penalties away and he's ill-disciplined. Other weeks, he can turn it on and be brilliant. So you can't be world-class. You can only be world-class if you are doing it most weeks and you are performing to a very high standard and a very high level every single week or close to that. You can't be a 1 in 3, 1 in 4, 1 in 5 player. And we're still having the conversation, is he starting at the weekend? We can't have a conversation about someone who's world-class if we're thinking he's going to be sat on the bench.
Agreed.
Yes, I mean, it's like... you know, I know we talk about Pogba a lot, and a lot of times it's because of his agent and other stuff, and, you know, he spends time on the bench, and I completely... I'm on the same page as Don there with this player. I mean, you don't talk about, you know, if Kevin De Bruyne is fit, is he on? No. Is he starting?
If you're world class, you're in the 11.
You're playing. Yeah. You know, is Kylian Mbappe? Is he going to start for PSG?
Does it fit his game? Yeah.
It's not even a story. But let me put it another way. When Ole Gunnar Solskjaer goes to bed tonight, he's not. Pogba's there. He's not even worried about him, because he knows he's only going to bring him on in desperation. He's worried about the midfield. He's worried about McTominay and Fred and Matic and he's worried about Maguire's defending and Lindelof and Wan-Bissaka going forward. He's worried about De Gea and you know, any little mistakes. He's worried about all these players. He's not worried about... I wouldn't think he's worried about Paul Pogba, because Paul Pogba is a bit of an afterthought for him. Play him against West Ham because I need to give Bruno Fernandes a rest. He's got a knock. Leave him on the bench at Leipzig. I'll bring him on if I'm desperate. That's where he is. He's got other things to concern himself. I bet Solskjaer's not even bothered about Mino Raiola coming out with all this. And they don't really care about it. It's not going to save his job. His job's getting results. So Pogba's there. Pogba's there if he needs him, right? And that's what he's done. Whenever he's needed him, whether it's injuries or losing at half-time, I'll bring him on or I might not bring him on. He might be able to help me. Doesn't trust him to start the game. Don't think we'll see any difference at the weekend.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.